He's a journalist, political analyst with the Center of Political Innovation and American Patriot. Please welcome back to the show, Caleb Maupin.
Hi.
Hey, Caleb.
How you doing?
Good. Great to have you back with us. I know you've been doing some traveling. You've been working on a bunch of stuff. You've been in our area. You've been in LA. We didn't even know you were here. We were covering the LA protests and all the stuff that went down here. And I saw your coverage for that. And I'm actually really interested in getting into that part of the story with you. But we have other stuff to get to as well. You're back. So you're back in New York right now. Yes. Is that?
I am for the next 2 weeks. Then I'm back in Chicago for our big event that we're having July 12th. So yeah, but I was in Russia before I was in LA. I was at an important conference called the Global Digital Forum about, AI and all kinds of stuff. Very exciting. And wow, just traveling around. It's been an exciting summer so far. It took it long enough to be warm here in New York, right? It was cold. And even in, late May, in early June, it felt cold. But then finally, we're in the heat of the summer. So here we go.
Yeah, here we go. And I think the big overall question that kind of connects everything, because we're all trying to, move the conversation forward in all these areas and do our part. And we appreciate all the on the ground work you do. But the overall question looming right now, I think, is what is being done by, I guess, the current administration, by Trump, the MAGA supporters. What's being done right now to stop World War III from happening? How close are we, or has anything been accomplished, or is there still a concern here? And we're seeing definitely a different opinions, especially in the MAGA arena. What have you noticed from your vantage point? What's going on right now, and should we be concerned more than ever about World War III?
Well, look, my organization, Center for Political Innovation, strategically during the election, we made a point of boosting the peace message within the MAGA camp. We thought that was the best use of our resources. And I have no regrets about that. We had a big banner of Trump and Kim Jong-un shaking hands, and it said, "Only peace can make America great again." And we went to the streets of New York City. We were out in front of Trump Tower with that banner. People were giving us thumbs up. We were at Madison Square Garden when Trump had his big rally with that banner. All kinds of Trump supporters were high-fiving us, agreeing with it, saying they love Kim Jong-un, they love Russia, they're voting for Trump because they want peace. And we felt that was the best thing to do. And we then went to Trump's inauguration with the same banner, created quite a splash. And there were a lot of Koreans who came, Koreans from Korea who came for the inauguration. And they were lining up one by one to get a picture with our banner of Trump and Kim Jong-un shaking hands. They thought it was so awesome, which is interesting because, just a couple decades ago in South Korea, if you had a picture of Kim Jong-un, you could go to jail, or the picture of the leader of North Korea. I am disgusted, absolutely disgusted and appalled by what Trump has done. It appears he cooperated with Netanyahu to bomb Iran. And furthermore, he then attacked Iran. And I'm also kind of shocked that Trump seems to be completely out of touch with reality. He did not destroy their nuclear facility. They moved all the nuclear material out 3 days ahead of time. And it's under, feet and feet of concrete. He barely touched the thing. And the New York Times says that. Iranian media says that. Now, the Defense Intelligence Agency is even saying that. But he's insisting, oh, no, I got him. And you have to wonder, is he trying to give himself an out? He's saying, oh, well, I can't bomb them anymore because I totally destroyed their program. Or, I don't know what's going on. There's just complete insanity going on. I don't think Trump knows what he's doing. I think he's surrounded by different people with different agendas that are telling him things. And this is a huge betrayal of the American people who voted for him because he promised peace. But, that's nothing new in American politics, politicians promising peace and giving us war. That goes back to Woodrow Wilson. You can talk about LBJ, you can talk about Bill Clinton, you can talk about Obama. Even Bush was talking, peace prior to 9/11. And the issue isn't the person. The issue isn't the politician. The issue is the system, right? But within that system, we have to build a movement. And I will say, though, that Trump supporters like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Thomas Massie, Tucker Carlson, they were far more outspoken opposing the attack on Iran than the so-called left. AOC and Bernie didn't jump in to oppose it until the last minute. And Bernie said he supports Israel attacking Iran. He just doesn't support the United States getting involved. They were very late to the party, the left. They were very late to the party, whereas Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massey and Tucker Carlson and other folks, they were against this from day one. But at the end of the day, we're not going to find the solution in the halls of Congress and the halls of the power, certainly not in the White House. It's going to be in building a mass movement. We need to build a mass peace movement. That's what we really need more than anything. Elections, sometimes you can be strategic, vote for one candidate, vote for another. But at the end of the day, we need a movement. That's what we really need, a real peace movement.
So does Trump posting something like this help the movement or hurt it? This was, I will have it on mute, but you guys, you probably know the tune that's being played behind this. It's the little, the bomb, Iran.
Sickening.
It's disgusting. Him putting this up there, like, I mean, look, we can try and figure out what's going on in his head. How does he go back and forth from we have a deal to Israel better stop effing with us to let's bomb Iran? It seems like I'm hearing some people assess it, and I know they're trying to give him a little cover here, but they're saying it might be a mental breakdown he's in the middle of. Why would you do this? On the other hand, does him posting like this maybe move some of the MAGAs that weren't so quick to say something's wrong here and wanted to believe that he had some 560 chest move going? This might put him into the category you're talking about, Caleb. Like, let's build a real movement and say this is not okay. This is insane. Why the hell are you making like making a TV series? Like, this is a reality show. Like, it's not. This is real life. This is people's lives. This is people's like their entire like world. You're destroying them with little mockeries. And then again, the back and forthness of it. Like, you could go from, hey, everything's good, we did it, to let's get the bombs out again. And to be clear, this was posted after he said it's over, we're good, we got peace. Why are we waking up to this crap? Can we leverage this? Can we say, hey, MAGAs, isn't this enough? Are you ready to stop pretending that this is 60 chess?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely sickening. And I mean, I honestly, I try to get people to not think about this in terms of personalities, right? Is Trump a good guy or a bad guy in his heart? What does he really want? I don't know, and I don't really care at the end of the day. That doesn't really matter. What matters is what actually happens. What he's actually doing with Iran, bombing them and backing Israel and doing so, is absolutely wrong. And what we urgently need is a peace movement, a real peace movement that includes Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, socialists, independents. That's what we urgently need. We need a real peace movement to oppose this and boost a message of opposing war within any camp. And that's what we need. And yeah, I mean, that's what I'm for. And that's what my organization, the Center for Political Innovation, is committed to building. We were in the streets of Chicago distributing at the peace rally that happened there. We have this book about the Houthi movement. Who are the Houthis? What are they fighting for? And we distributed over 400 copies at the peace rally in Chicago. People were scooping it up to learn all about this revolutionary movement in Yemen, that was created, and has a poster on the back for our event coming up on July 12th. It's going to be really awesome. Scott Ritter and Angela McCurdle and all kinds of people are going to be in Chicago. We're going to have important Iranian American commentators like Syed Husseini. And I mean, it's going to be a really, really great event that we're putting together to kind of try and build the nucleus of building a real peace movement. But yeah, I mean, that's what we need. I will say that that one of the biggest problems is that, that the majority of Americans that are against bombing Iran, that are against, supporting Israel militarily, are on the right or are libertarian. And that is just a fact. However, the street protest movement is only leftist groups, and that's a problem. And that is largely because of the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation. They control the protest cage, right? They reserve all the permits and all of that. And they are determined that if you're not saying your pronouns before you speak, and if you're not, absolutely in favor of abortion under all circumstances, you can't be part of their anti-war coalition. And they may say otherwise, but they're essentially running cover for the Democrats by kind of repeating, it's one thing to oppose Trump. I mean, I can understand being very angry. A lot of people that I know are posting F Trump, things like that. I understand their anger. But the Trump derangement syndrome is not coming from a good place. It's coming from the fact that, the establishment fears he might actually make peace with Russia or with anybody else. And, but yet, if you're not on board with Trump derangement syndrome and this kind of liberal cancel culture, you can't be part of the anti-war movement. That's a big problem. You know, I think that anti-war perspectives should be welcome, and you have to build a real coalition. And a coalition means everyone doesn't agree on everything. And we need to break the anti-war movement out of kind of being this fringe wing of the Democrats that is anti-war, and it should be welcome to people of all perspectives who don't want World War III.
Yeah.
It's woke and delusional, their message. I mean, whether you believe it or not, you have to understand that if you try to tie Palestinians' right to exist to transgender rights, you're just not going to build a coalition across the board. You're going to actually scare more people away. And that's stuff that the PSL and the Answer Coalition and a lot of these groups, unfortunately, they capitulate towards these culture war issues. I mean, that's why I think that it was so important in the very beginning for the first Rage Against the War Machine, before they allowed people like Nick Brana to continue to run, who was supporting RFK while he was running the whole, event. The
blank check to Netanyahu.
That's ridiculous. You can't be anti-war and be pro-Israel, and that's why it was so ridiculous. But the first one, when we were able to build a movement of people, we saw each other later that day at your event. We came over. I brought some, libertarians. I said, I'm bringing you guys to a communist event. You only get one cheeseburger, one hamburger each, because that's the way it is with the communists. And it's funny because they would make jokes as we're going over. Like, we'd stop at a light before you cross and like, hey, these communists, they're going to try to kill us. And I was like, don't try to do that. It's stupid libertarian mindset BS. That's not true. You got to understand what communism's all about. And I'm not telling you to go and kind of capitulate towards communism. But I do think that there are things within socialism and communism. And we've had these discussions before too, as well. Caleb, off camera. There are certain things I do like about socialism that I think are very important. For one, I think that central planning can work. If the Chinese can find a way to build great roads and high-speed rail all over the place and do that, that's good. Don't you think with Mondami winning, before we get into him, that there was a big positive, that discussion of the differences between communism, socialism, and capitalism, the similarities and the differences and how it worked? Don't you think it was good for him at least to get that talking point back on the table?
Yeah, and I did a whole video on this recently, a whole stream and all of that. And you know what? I want to keep a positive attitude. My belief is we should give everyone their chance. I gave Trump a chance. I gave AOC a chance. She, went down in flames. But I want to give this guy a chance. There are some things that don't make sense to me about him winning. I'll just tell you that much, right? There are some things that it's a little odd, right? Like, why is Chuck Schumer and Bill Clinton and all kinds of people that are generally, opposed to anyone who's at all anti-establishment, kind of just giving him the approval, and what's really going on here? But you know what? At the end of the day, who cares, right? And just the fact that he won the Democratic primary shows that enough people voted for him. On the record, there's enough people that are in favor of a socialist who's critical of Israel, so that's a good thing. And I want him to do well. My attitude is we should want people to get into office and do good things, but based on what we've seen with AOC, what we've seen with Trump and with Bernie, we don't always get the results. And so I don't want to give people false hope, but at the same time, I want to give them a chance. That's my attitude.
Can I say this much? I'm giving him no chance because he's in the Democratic Party. I'm just happy. Right. No, I mean, that's the way it is. The same reason I gave Trump no chance, because he's in the Republican Party, the two-party duopoly, and we knew he didn't end up here. But if it brings conversation to the public square that needs to be had moving forward, that's great. We don't necessarily need Mondami to have those conversations, but if he sparked those conversations, because I'm here in Boca Raton, Highland Beach, and there were people who were like, Zionist neighbors of mine who was like, "That's it, we're selling our place in New York. This guy won, we're done. He's done." You know what I'm saying? And I asked another person, "Hey, so did you guys survive the mayoral race the other day?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, socialist won." I said, "Well, it's really not socialist." I mean, most people who consider themselves socialists that are in the street, Caleb, they're not like you. They don't know about the differences between Engels and Marx. They just want to see an area where the corporations aren't robbing people. They have a decent standard of living. They want to maybe get some central planning done to build things for the people to move around. I think those conversations are so important. But once again, we don't need Mondami to have those conversations, but happy that he's sparking those conversations.
Well, yeah, and I think that there's a layer of people in like the mainstream of New York City politics. They're really mad at Trump and his supporters, and they're really mad at in particular kind of the wealthy real estate owners that are often directly tied in with Israel. Like there's real estate companies in New York that are like incorporated in Israel, and they support Trump and they support Israel. And, you know, they live, you know, you talk about those neighborhoods like up near Central Park in Manhattan, you know, and this guy, Zoran Mamdani, he doesn't have to do anything. He just has to exist, right? He's a brown guy. He's a literal Muslim. He calls himself a socialist. I was joking. You could go into one of those apartment buildings near Central Park West with a picture of him and hold it up, and it would be like, you know, the cross for Dracula. You know, in the old movies, they hold up the cross and Dracula goes, ah! You know, it'd be like that. I mean, you just hold it up. He makes them shit their pants. And I feel like there's some people in the Democratic Party that are just so mad at Trump and that, you know, that layer of people. They're just having fun. They're just, you know, oh, look, we got a socialist. You know, they're just kind of sitting back and laughing at the kind of the right wing lower levels of capital in New York City.
Yeah.
Will they let, you know, this guy take office? And if he takes office, will he actually do anything good? I hope both of those things happen. I hope he takes office and does good things, but we'll see. We'll see. You know, Andrew Cuomo hasn't ruled out running against him, you know, in the general election. And Andrew Cuomo is the guy the New York City machine is largely behind. And, you know, even, you know, DSA itself is a CIA creation. I mean, that's just fact. You look at Michael Harrington and Max Shachtman, who created DSA. It was in the late 70s when a lot of communists were kind of mellowing out, when China shifted its politics and the Soviet Union was heading toward the collapse. And, you know, DSA was kind of created almost as a deprogramming operation for communists. It was, you know, people used to joke that DSA was like the ex-communist support group in the early 80s. It was, you know, Michael Harrington and Gloria Steinem, who's been brags about being a CIA creation in her autobiography. They set up this group that said, okay, communism's not so good, but you can join the Democratic Party. And that's always what DSA has been. And I don't feel like DSA is just going to morph into some kind of real revolutionary organization. You know, they don't particularly play a good role, but, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. And, you know, they definitely, Trump's reaction to this doubles down the New York frustration against Trump and coming out and voting for Mamdani. And like his tweet just kind of embodies the problem with this right wing. It's fanatical. It's very odd that
retarded.
I mean, listen to this. It's finally happened. The Democrats have crossed the line. Zoran Mamdani is 100% communist lunatic. It's just won the Dem primary. Is on his way to becoming mayor. We've had radical lefties before, but this is getting a little ridiculous. He looks terrible. His voice is grating. He's not very smart. He's got AOC +3, dummies all backing him, and even our great Palestinian senator, crying Chuck Schumer, is groveling over him. Yes, this is a big moment in the history of our country. I mean, this lunacy take. I mean, it's very theatrical, obviously, but doesn't he's doubling down on this notion that when you challenge Israel to the point of, I don't want to make it a place I visit when I first get in office. I want to actually stay in New York and work for on behalf of the people who voted for me. That's considered radical, crazy, commie, and even invoking this like terrorist supporting type of lunacy that he's talking about. And there's a lot of people on the right that hear that and they go, oh, he's right. And they're going to look at New York as a place that look how far radical they've gone, where we know the real problem isn't whether he's going to go too far radical left. The problem is how far center right is he going to end up? That's really the biggest concern, because we see that with everyone else, with Bernie, with AOC. So why would I don't know how people can hold on to that narrative, but maybe he's tweeting this out because he knows there's enough of his base that will buy it. Do you think he actually
put the Nick Sorter tweet up, by the way? Put that up because it goes hand in hand for what Trump's saying, because you got the MAGA media following this up. Sorry to interrupt, Matt, but
no, that's
exactly what this is going to prove exactly what you're saying.
Jamie, do you have the Nick Sorto? It's from the previous.
It's in the doc. Is Jamie there?
Do you see it?
I can't see Jamie.
It's in the previous segment.
I mean, yeah, Chuck Schumer voted against the Iran nuclear deal. Chuck Schumer is a huge supporter of Israel. I don't know how Chuck Schumer is a Palestinian. That's just
it doesn't make sense. Yeah,
doesn't make any sense, right? And again, there is that layer of kind of very wealthy Zionist real estate folks that are like millionaires, but they're not part of the elite club. They're kind of millionaires, that maybe they live in Trump Tower or something. Like that's who he's pandering to. Go ahead.
You want to read that, Craig?
President Trump should invoke the Communist Control Act to block Zoran Mandami from becoming mayor of New York. We have to play hardball here. All right, this is retarded. DOJ can easily establish communist ties, give Mandami openly boosted a communist group, and called for a communist mayor. He should also lose his status as a naturalized citizen. Can you move it up for me, Jamie? Given he began associating with communists within 5 years of becoming a U.S. citizen. This is the craziness that they are pushing. This is why I'm saying right now, full blown. There are other words to call them, Caleb, but Republicans right now are retarded, and this is retarded.
It is. And I mean, those laws are largely, the Supreme Court has ripped apart those kind of laws. They don't have validity anymore. I mean, the Supreme Court has basically said, for the most part, those laws don't have any validity. And also, the Democratic Socialists of America is not a communist group. Like I said before, this is a group that was largely created by CIA supporters in the 80s. They're social democrats, basically. They were bringing ex-communists into the Democratic Party. It's interesting. So I guess Zoran was born in Africa, right? And his middle name is Kwame, after Kwame Nkrumah, who was like the communist leader in Ghana, right? I guess his parents were supporters of some of the like communist aligned governments in Africa. And, but then what happened in the 90s is the African National Congress of South Africa was originally a communist led group. But after the fall of the Soviet Union, they pivoted to becoming social democrats, right? And the government in Namibia and the government of Zimbabwe and elsewhere, that there was, a lot of these groups that were fighting against apartheid kind of conditions across, Southern Africa or other parts of the African continent. A lot of them were communist aligned, but then when the Soviet Union fell, they pivoted, and Angela Davis, who was a big leader of the U.S. Communist Party, right? When the Soviet Union fell, she kind of renounced her communist ties. She started the committees of correspondence, and she aligned herself with social democracy, et cetera. And I mean, it looks like this guy, his parents were in this kind of pro-Soviet African milieu, and then they pivoted toward social democracy, which is what DSA is. So, and that's a big internationally, this is one thing when you talk about right wingers, they just don't know what they're talking about. Do you remember when Donald Trump got up at the UN and he said, America will never be a socialist country. Socialism has never worked. And he expected the audience to applaud for him, right? Mm-hmm. And they didn't, because it's like half the people in the room are affiliated with some party that is technically a socialist party, like, the British Labour Party. They're not, but on paper, they say they're a democratic socialist party. They're the ruling party of Britain, right? And almost all the political parties throughout the Middle East and North Africa and most of the world, some kind of vague understanding that we need the government to plan the economy to make people's lives better. That's pretty standard in most of the world, right? And beating your chest against it, like it's the far right in America, from the John Birch Society going back to McCarthyism and all that, they have this idea that any notion of socialism is, we're going to set up gulags and round up everybody or something. That's a uniquely American kind of deviation that throughout the world, most people don't have that kind of, obsessive free market thinking that kind of dominates the Republican Party. And what Trump kind of represents is there's an element of nostalgia, I think, that, during the Cold War, people talked about Reagan, and during the Reagan years, right, America and capitalism was great. And everybody knew there was nothing wrong with capitalism. And that's not the America we live in now. People know there's something wrong with capitalism. And I think a lot of these Republicans want to go back. They want to go back to when they felt confident about the American system. They want Reagan back. They want the Reagan years. And they want, the USA tearing down the Berlin Wall. They want that back. They want that feeling of pride and confidence back. And that's what Trump is kind of pandering to. You think I'm onto something?
I think you are. I think and then he knows that when he puts a tweet like that out, that he's gonna, rev up that it's just they're holding on. I think it's an ego. They're holding on to what America was supposed to be, and that's what Make America Great Again is even about. Is this thing it was supposed to be, even though the thing we've lived through the last several decades, primarily, and what we saw what self-described right-wing populists we saw during COVID. We saw this idea that they could see, and obviously those of us on the left could also see. We kind of aligned in this space about 5 years ago, where we're like, this system is completely failed. It's completely turned on us, and now we can't even push back. We're losing our free speech. All these things that we go, oh shoot, we align on all these things. I always knew there was a little disconnect there. As we were doing the medical freedom movement push from our side, we noticed that they were even understanding that everything we lived through is failed. It's failed. It wasn't an outside entity that did it. It was our system that did it. It failed. And they still want to hold on to this idea that we got to get back to American exceptionalism and capitalism. Capitalism fails because of socialism. And you're like, wait a minute. But socialism fails because of socialism. Capitalism fails because of so everything is blame it on socialism. It's a very bizarre place to be, especially when you are in that wake up moment that everything we know to be true has been false. Everything we thought worked doesn't work. How do we connect this? And I think that this leads to my next thing, because you brought this up at the beginning. I think this is a running theme here. How do we build this coalition of people that can actually take those tribal goggles off altogether, not just halfway off, but all the way off? Stop blaming a system that we're not in. Stop protecting something that clearly has failed. And let's get into a new space together. How do we do that when we don't? There's such a disconnect, Caleb. I don't know how we do that. Can we at least, maybe should we turn our focus on what we experienced here the last few weeks in LA? And you came here. I'd like to talk to you about your impression of what happened here during the No Kings rally. And I do have unless you want to comment on what I just said, I did put together a clip from what you showed me, your actual coverage here, and I want to talk about that.
All right, yeah, go ahead, show the clip. Yeah,
okay, let's show the clip. Let's have a discussion, because there's something going on here, and it's either going in the right direction or the wrong direction. But let's have a discussion about this. So this is Caleb was in LA covering the No Kings. We were right next to you, and we didn't even know it, Caleb.
Oh,
right
really?
when this was going down on that big day there in the street. So here's Caleb's coverage here of No Kings from a few weeks ago.
In downtown LA, it seems the crowd is now throwing explosive fireworks towards the federal troops that are positioned around City Hall. Explosions are taking place, as you can hear behind me. Cars are going by, throwing explosives at protesters. It's not clear who is in the cars, but they are throwing explosives at the protesters. Seeing quite a bit of smoke coming from down by City Hall where the crowd is. So one protester was seen covered in blood. It looks like he was hit with a police rubber bullet.
Everybody back up! Everybody back up! Everybody back up! He's a medic! He's a medic! He's a medic! Get back! Get back! Get back! Get back! Everybody get back here!
Okay, I need my gun.
And I like you guys.
You're good. You're good. You're good.
This is a fucking photo!
You're good. I know.
Now, we all just received notice on our phones that an unlawful assembly has been declared. The phone notice urges people to avoid the downtown area, and that basically announces that the federal troops or local law enforcement have declared the assembly of people, the thousands of people gathered here, to be unlawful.
Okay. So that's not what it started as. It was supposed to be No Kings peaceful protest against the king, I guess King Trump. It was about let's I don't know, it was really hard to understand the messaging, but we do know that the protest was bought in advance by billionaire Walmart heiress Christy Walton, who then could help control the message. And you mentioned earlier about PSL being very elitist about what they were allowed. If you wanted to be part of their thing, if you're part of their thing, you have to check these boxes. I believe this is a way worse problem, that a billionaire class can buy up a protest and then keep other groups out. Forget PLS or PSL. There are other groups that are anti-war that wanted to be part of this. They were not allowed to come if they brought their signage. They said, oh, you can come. You can't really bring anything that, oh, shoot. I think sorry, guys. Hold on a sec. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think I got a little froze here. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah. We can hear your voice, though.
Okay, let me figure this out. It does this sometimes. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's going to talk about once again, it's interesting because I think today was supposed to be another Answer Coalition Hands Off Iran rally today, wasn't it?
Yeah, they've been having them consistently, and I mean it's good. We need people in the streets to oppose war with Iran, but we just need to maximize participation. That's my critique, right? Is that we need to allow people who take leadership from Marjorie Taylor Greene to be out there. We need libertarians, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess the LA protests were a little more intense than the No Kings rallies around the country, because the issue was that there were the ICE raids in LA, right? And that there were some intense protests against ICE, and so Trump had sent federal troops to LA, and he did that without the permission of the governor. Honestly, I agree with the critique of ICE. I'm not fully where a lot of the far left are, where they just say, open borders, and I'm not for that. But at the same time, all of the things that conservatives are worried about, there is an issue with mass migration, get made worse by having extreme ICE raids. For example, right? You can't pay an undocumented worker less than minimum wage. That's illegal. But there's a reason they get paid less than minimum wage, is none of them will come forward because, they're afraid of getting deported. So if you terrorize immigrant communities, they're going to work for even less pay. Right. And, if you build a giant wall on the border, people are still going to try to get in the country. How are they going to get in the country? Well, they're going to have to go to groups like, Tren de Aragua and the MS-13 to smuggle them across the border. And those gangs are going to flourish when immigrant communities are afraid to call the police because they're afraid they'll get deported. And, terrorizing immigrant communities, forcing immigrant families into the shadows, etc., making kids afraid that their parents won't be there when they get home from school. None of this is addressing the issue. There is an issue. People shouldn't have to flee their homes en masse and come to the United States, and they find dead bodies every day along the Mexican border. That's not good. There's a problem, but you're not going to solve the problem by just enacting a police state. And the police state is going to come down on all of us. It's not just going to come down on undocumented workers. And so I agree with the protesters that what Trump is doing with ICE, that's not following due process, deporting people without just cause, he's got a tattoo, he must be in a gang. That's terrifying, right? And whatever happened to the rule of law, whatever happened to habeas corpus. And so, I agree with the protesters. I don't agree with some of what they were saying about, some of the stuff, it's not really defensible, right? Even if we had complete open borders, right, and we let everyone into the country, we'd still have customs that would check their passports and stamp them before they come in. I mean, the idea that we just don't have a border because that's racist or something, I mean, that's where the left kind of loses people.
I don't think that was the message of getting in the streets, though. I think that was the breaking point was the week. So let me be clear on the timeline. The week before No Kings happened, there was an actual on the ground protest against the raids that were happening. Primarily, we went out there to cover the first round, which was that it was after it was that Friday before that weekend. The raids just went tenfold on they were ICE raids were happening in elementary schools, they're happening at graduations, just tearing up. It was insane.
Restaurants, Home Depots.
It was absolutely insane. So the first protest, they positioned it right outside the ICE office down in Compton at Paramount, right across from the Home Depot, that they were told that was their next target, and they wanted to stop it. So that was a real moment. And when we got there, I did notice it was very bizarre that there were all of a sudden there were these weapons available. It seemed to me that there was the state, the police state, the Palantir element. I was looking into that. We were looking at the timing of it, that they were setting up this situation where it would become violent on purpose in order to make the protesters look like they were the problem. And it gives Trump cover to say we need to send a National Guard, but that was the plan the whole time. So fast forwarding to the next week, I wanted to ask you directly, because you got that text on your phone, we all got it, where it said this is an unlawful protest. So this is the following weekend, unlawful protest, giving the police the opportunity that they're responding to the alert. I happen to think the alert was predetermined to be sent out to every city, no matter what the protesters were doing, giving the police the cue. Now we can fire on the crowd. Now's the time. They were just waiting for that cue. We got the cue, guys. unload on the crowd. That's what I saw. Did you see something? Did you see something different in different order?
Yeah, so after we got that message, then these cars just went by at really high speeds, and they're throwing little explosives at the protesters, right? And I mean, obviously, and there were some people in the crowd, I guess, that were throwing little explosives beforehand, but it was protesters that were having little bombs thrown at them from the crowd. So, I mean, in those cars that went by, and then there was another car that kind of stopped, but it had some kind of smoke machine in it and was like smoking up the area. That didn't seem to come from the protest itself. It came from somebody else. And, I mean, they were throwing little explosives at the protesters. And it was right after we got that notice. That looked to me like some kind of, police effort to clear the area. But I mean, who knows what was really happening? I mean, there were protesters who were shot with rubber bullets, and I mean, it was pretty intense, and they didn't want that crowd down by City Hall, right? They had the federal, troops, I guess Marines or whatever, that were kind of guarding the City Hall, guarding the federal facilities near LA City Hall. And they didn't want those protests to continue being there. And I guess if you were trapped in the area, that's a lot of people got arrested because they were kind of trapped in the area. And, there was tear gas, and it was pretty intense.
I got to say that I think that to add to the fact that I've been calling Republicans retarded this whole show, another thing that makes this whole situation really retarded with Donald Trump sending the ICE agents to California, then sending the guard after, right, is the fact is that, number one, you're supposed to be about all states issues, right? Conservative thinking is all about states' rights. And this is a red Republican president sending in federal troops into a blue state that didn't even ask for that. Didn't even ask, didn't ask for ICE to come, didn't ask for federal agents to come, didn't ask for the guard. As a person who's lived in Los Angeles and in Angelino, we love our immigrant community over there, and we do not want ICE raids. For them to go and justify that too, and Queen retard, like people like Laura Loomer, to then justify Palantir to go follow up with what's been going on with the data mining, to say we should send them to Palantir to California to fix the whole immigrant problem over there. I mean, these people are just delusional at this point. Everything they stood for against the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the World Economic Forum, the Great Reset, they're ushering it in because it's their guy. It's their billionaire, Peter Thiel, with J.D. Vance, that's doing this stuff. It's a completely retarded situation, and they've showed their true colors.
But it's more than that, though. It's not just that they're retarded, therefore this is happening. The point, this to me, it seems like if you look at the calendar, you got the big beautiful bill, which comes out, it goes through the House, it's in the Senate, they're implementing this 10-year hold where states cannot challenge the AI clause in this bill, which gives the complete control of surveillance to a private company, which then controls all the government agencies. The Palantir and ICE are already working together. All of these raids are through Palantir, targeting these people to create this chaos. And as Caleb mentioned, even on that last day, they have to get the protesters. And I'm telling you guys, this is not just Republicans being stupid and Democrats going a little too far because they got a little too close to City Hall. This was the plan the whole time. You antagonize the protesters with these provocateurs that are in the crowd. They're there on purpose to rile the crowd up. You send out this predetermined message across the country, by the way. Everyone got that message. So every single protest that day happened to go a little too close to City Hall. No, it was by design. And then you're going to get your lower loomers. That's the plan. You connect it with Palantir. You tell the right-wingers, the MAGAs, now we punish these Antifa people. Now we punish these people. They deserve to be monitored and tracked and locked down by ICE, by Palantir, by the surveillance state that we worked against when it was our people, like you said, Craig. So the whole thing's by design, and it's taking advantage of people's preconceived ideas about the battle between the extreme left and the extreme right. That's what we're at. And by the way, the left does it too. They say, arrest those January 6th protesters. They don't deserve due process. They're the extreme versions of us. They're not us. They're not trying to, have their First Amendment right, like show up for a protest. Like that's a normal thing you should be able to do. No, they're extremists. Let's teach them a lesson. So they're both doing it. This is all by design. And I think we need to send this message. And again, back to Caleb's initial thing you came in here with, what your champion is building a coalition. How the hell do we do that when they have all these psyops in place to trick us all? And as Craig says, get the retarded people doing the wrong thing. What the hell do we do about this, Caleb? How do we get the message out that we're all being duped here?
Well, I increasingly find myself seeing that there's almost a spiritual question here. And I try to focus more on what I'm for rather than what I'm against. I am for building, I am for constructing. And I feel like, there is a lot of negativity. The internet in particular is just oozing with negativity. And that's because people are atomized. They're alone on their computer. And that, people have kind of monetized, what they talk about scare porn, right? You watch every channel and the world is going to hell. And, you watch a left channel and Donald Trump is Hitler and he's coming to get you. You watch a right channel, the left, Antifa is coming to get you. And it's not about actually putting forward a program to actually fix things. Yeah. It's instead about, who can, scare people the most and who can trigger people the most. And, everyone's saying, well, you don't understand my pain. Yeah, well, you don't understand my pain. I'm suffering. Well, I'm suffering. And it becomes this negative spiral. Whereas, we at CPI, we have a 4-point economic plan to save the country. And we emphasize that the only future America is going to have is joining the BRICS and joining the new economy that's rising in the world. We talk about great African leaders like Ibrahim Traore, who's enabling all kinds of Africans to become farmers, open up their own farms, and build the country. We talk about economic development projects. We propose the Peace Bridge, connecting the United States, Alaska with Russia, building a bridge over the Bering Sea. We talk about the way to stop drug gangs and such is to have a development corridor, an economic development corridor from, the United States all the way down to Nicaragua. Fusion energy being the solution to climate change. We got to get higher than fossil fuels, right? Rather than trying to reduce consumption and reduce electrical output, we need to get a better energy source like fusion energy. And that's why Russia and China are teaming up to, speed ahead with fusion. We need to get America in on that. So when fusion energy comes, it doesn't become one country's property. It belongs to all the world, right? That we want to put forward real practical solutions and not anger. I've had various people say to me, well, Caleb, if you're a revolutionary, why do you want to save the country? Why do you want to save America? Don't you want to destroy it? And it's like, if I don't advocate making life better in my country, I have no right to talk about politics. No one's going to vote to destroy their own country. No one's going to vote to make their life worse. If you're serious about politics, you should be putting forward solutions that will improve people's lives. And the question of a revolution, I would prefer a peaceful transition to the kind of society that we want. Right now, if that's not possible, if our leaders, take away our right to peacefully organize and set up some kind of fascist state, people have the right to defend the republic and to defend their country. Right. That's in the Constitution. You have the right to protect democracy, but we should advocate a peaceful transition. Right. And that we need to speak about this in a responsible, sensible way and not just kind of feed into people's cathartic anger, their anger at the other side, their desire to get their anger out. That's not helpful. There's a lot of negative emotions out there. We need to be trying to appeal to people's positive emotions, people's desire to build, to construct, people's connections with other people, promoting love and community as we put forward real solutions.
Matt, while we got Caleb here, before he gets out of here, can we ask him a couple questions about Russia? Because I think that's something that's being forgotten real quick. Or did you have something? Because I'd like to put up, Jamie, if you could put up the Putin, the other tweet I put up over there. A couple hours ago, I saw some RT and a couple other outlets that Putin was really disgusted that the West is still continuing to seize Russia's gold, I believe, right? And won't relinquish a lot of the finances. You can see here, I said theft of our gold and foreign exchange reserves. Theft is secret theft of property, and this is open. It is robbery, Putin says, and he complains about it. Sanctions are an act of war. Seizing gold from another country, a sovereign nation's country, is an act of war. That's it. You can get rid of those things. This situation where Donald Trump said he was going to end this war in 24 hours, he was going to build a bridge with Russia. This is supposed to be over. RT is supposed to be back in America. All this Sputnik's supposed to be back on the air. We're all supposed to be back to work full time, doing the things we used to do. Not happening. Not getting closer. In fact, we're moving away from it. And now with the ICE raids and the No Kings and the Iran thing, we don't even hear what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, unless you actively seek it out. It's definitely not being talked about the mainstream media. We're hearing from Putin today. Are we moving further away from any type of peace deal in Russia? And what does that mean for the future of Russia, Ukraine? Because I can't see a world existing where the Russians would allow this regime to still exist in Kiev. They are either going to get to a position where they're going to have to take them out, and that's what it seems like the West is doing, antagonizing Putin and the Russian Federation to take Kiev. What are your thoughts on everything that's going on in Russia, Ukraine, and the future that is in place for that region over there?
Well, there's a couple things. I mean, when you talk about the theft of their gold, that's speeding up a process that Trump said he was concerned about on the campaign trail. I guess he forgot about it, which is that, part of the way the USA stays at the center of the world economy is every country in the world keeps its money in American banks or British banks, right? Well, now countries are seeing, if something goes wrong and they get mad at us, then they just take our money and they freeze it. Mm-hmm. So they're going to stop putting their money in American banks. They're going to stop trading in the US dollar. And the dollar is going to lose its value. And we're going to, see inflation like we've never seen. And that's going to hurt us in the long term, right? And I mean, that's not good, right? I mean, countries should be able to put their gold or their money in American banks and understand that even if our president or our leaders get mad at them, they can still withdraw it. But if that's not the case, then they're going to stop doing that. And they're going to put their money in banks of countries they trust. And we're going to get poorer as a result. Our currency is going to become less valuable. Now, as far as a solution to this, I'm hearing kind of the opposite, in some of the circles that I'm running in, because Zelensky is suddenly not popular anymore. Everyone's talking about Iran. Everyone's talking about Israel. And Zelensky is suddenly like, hey, I'm here too. I'm supposed to be the big fighter for the West against whatever. And, and also there's a number of European countries that don't seem to be really on board with what Trump is doing in the Middle East. France was very critical of Trump's decision there. And while, the West seems to be, it's this solid block against Russia, now, France and especially, Germany, the countries on the European mainland, Britain seems to be pretty on board with the United States and Israel, but the countries on the European mainland are not fully on board. And so the NATO alliance against Russia is starting to come apart. So there's actually some hope that the Ukraine situation might, move towards some kind of resolution with Iran, and Israel and all of that on the front page. When it really gets down to it, I think that Donald Trump had realized there was no way that he could, just sign a deal in Ukraine and look good. No matter what, if he signed a deal and ended the Ukraine war, mainstream media was going to call him a sellout to Putin, right? And they were going to say he surrendered to Putin. And there was no way Trump could frame it as an awesome victory. That's what Trump always likes to do. He likes to come out and say, I won. I had a big one. And there's no way he could do that with Ukraine. Russia is not going to let the people in Donbass who've been bombed, for 9 years, they've been bombed by the Ukrainian government. They're not going to let them rejoin the Kiev government. It's not going to happen, right? Crimea is not going to, become part of Ukraine again, and neither is Donetsk and neither is Lugansk. And so, when a peace treaty is signed and it's recognized that the new republics are part of Russia, the Western media is going to say, wow, Trump sold out Ukraine. He gave up all of Ukraine's territory. And there's no way that Trump can have a handshake and look like a hero. So I think Trump wants to take the conversation away from Ukraine and have everyone talking about the Middle East so he can do something and it won't be on the front page. It won't get a huge amount of attention. Trump was hoping he could have a photo op where he'd look like a hero. And there's no way he's going to get that because in order to do that, he would have to not, acknowledge Russia's legitimate issues there. And I think that's the issue. Trump is concerned about how he looks. He's concerned about optics. He's almost like a social media influencer, right? He cares about who he looks with, who he's shaking hands with, and at the end of the day, I think Trump, he wasn't going to get a good photo op out of Ukraine. So now he's hoping to, have the spotlight somewhere else. And maybe things in Ukraine can gradually bog down with everyone looking at something else, but we will have to see.
Yeah. I'm waiting for him to do since he's been doing these, like, we won tweets and everything's great and just doing it because he says it. Maybe that's what he's planning for Ukraine too. Might as well at this point. I think he threw this one up. I mean, this is ridiculous. Trump was right about everything. I mean, this is crazy. Why not just do this about whatever you want to be right about? Just say you're right, and then it becomes truth, right? That's
Right.
the whole. Just say what it is you want, and then that's the thing. And everybody, all your supporters, go, "Yay! He did what he said. He stopped the war in Ukraine." Well, he didn't yet. Well, he said he did, so that's good enough for us.
Right, yeah, right.
Because
Yeah.
feelings. That's all. Maybe,
Yeah.
yeah.
And this is why it's so dangerous when we make politics about personalities. It just becomes, are you on the red team or the blue team? Are you on, it stops becoming about reality, right? And that's why, again, with Trump, it's like, I liked a lot of what I was hearing from Trump during the election, and we strategically wanted to boost it, but it was about principles. It was not about personalities, right? And we got to get away from team sports and personalities and focus on the actual principles, I think.
Yeah. Anything else you want to include that we may have skipped over before you go? I mean, we could do a little another mention about your July 12th event.
Yeah, July 12th. We're having our big convention in Chicago. It's going to be pretty awesome. I hope that folks are there. We had a rally to build it, supporting Ibrahim Traore, the great African leader who's building up Burkina Faso. It's going to be at the Midwest Convention Center near O'Hare Airport. It'll be, starting on July 12th, 9 a.m. Is when the doors open. We're raising money to cover the costs, but we're going to have a great event, and it's going to be pretty awesome. So I hope people are there. There'll be video afterwards online if you're not there. And if you can send us a donation to cover the cost, if you can't make it, that'd be great. But it's going to be pretty awesome. And we've got a team of people in Chicago right now that are putting door hanger flyers on doors in neighborhoods throughout the city. We're giving away copies of our book that we wrote about the Houthis. Who are the Houthis? What are they fighting for? With a poster for the event on the back. We're doing everything we can. We just published a new book today about Ibrahim Traore, the African leader. So that's going to be available. And, a lot of things are happening. Jeff Young, who's the leader of the Kentucky Party, he's bringing a delegation from the Kentucky Party. He's going to be speaking. We got all kinds of people. Keith Preston from attackthesystem.org is going to be there. Don DeBar. I mean, it's like the amount of people that are coming. It'll be just kind of a reunion for the whole, alternative media crowd. So come and shake hands and get selfies with your favorite people and meet a crowd of like-minded people. We're going to have at least a few hundred people there. We're very confident of that. And if you're in the Chicago area and you need to carpool with somebody, we got transportation. If you register, we can figure out someone to pick you up. I know, not everyone has a vehicle, so we are providing transportation on the day. So there you go.
Yeah. And it would be a great opportunity for Angela McArdle and Scott Ritter to apologize for their supporting of Donald Trump and say how wrong and stupid they were for doing so.
Well, there you go. I think it's going to be a great event. I think it'll be awesome. And I'm just looking to talk with other people about how we can build the peace movement we urgently need. So, yeah.
Definitely, buddy. You're doing a great job of that. I've been at a symposium with this gentleman before, and I can tell you, it was a lot of people from North Korea and South Korea, and they weren't pro-Trump, they weren't pro-Republican, they weren't pro-Democrat. They were just pro-peace. And I've said this before. Maybe Caleb might have, what's that whole thing when they say, when Burgess Meredith says, man, I wish this would be, we can find peace. Well, you can wish in one hand and crap in the other and see which one gets filled first. I'm still not going to fault you for trying to push for any type of peace solution. You saw an opportunity to push the narrative. And at the end of the day, you might have been wishing on a star that was never going to come true, that there would be some stuff. But you know what? When we see an opportunity and we can elevate the conversation, people can get educated about it. That's the most important thing. You were the first in the street out there to push for help, to support the people of the Donbass who were getting bombed by the Kiev regime. You were the first to push. I've seen in North and South Korea. And that opportunity, you highlighted what went on over there. And even though we might have learned to believe that Donald Trump was doing it because he saw a manufacturing base that he could take advantage of, and that was his motives, it doesn't make a difference. We still find out that these are families who are separated in North and South Korea, and they want that line to go away so they can reunite, and that's the most important thing. And I think you've been great for highlighting that. But now we know. We're not going to get any help from the Republicans or the Democrats ever. I think at this point now we never look at them. This we didn't get to talk about Mandami, right? So I mean,
we did.
We a little bit, yeah. We didn't get to talk about what we think is going to happen. Yeah, we did. We talked about it, but at the end of the day, he's still a Democrat. So I think we gotta say no. But thank you for the work you do in getting out in the street and pushing the messages you do. It's very educational, and I think I can't doubt you for at least trying to find a way to find peace, because that's what we need, pro peace.
Yeah, we just got to keep building and constructing, and it's about the community and it's about the movement. So that's what I'm all about. Thanks for having me on. I wish you both the best, and continue the great work that you guys are doing on alternative media. All
You
right.
too, Caleb. Thank you so much.
Caleb.
See you next time.